Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made.
And I'm Ross, creative director at Epic Made, and we're the hosts of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on art and creativity as it pertains to business. Past guests include Marcy Selsberg of Blah Blah Blah, Justin Ahrens from Rule 29 and the Creative Shit Show podcast, as well as Raphael Pollendagle of Splitbase.
We are forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast and are always looking for more supporters. That said, Pixel Retentive is always brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a studio of creative storytellers fueled by a lifelong passion for entertainment and pop culture. We craft visually captivating animations and illustrations that connect brands with millennial and Gen Z audiences, which we've already done for some of the biggest brands on planet Earth, like WWE, Sci-Fi, and Nickelodeon. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign.
He's usually better at that. I changed it on this for this episode.
Man, you suck, Carl.
With us today, we have Ian Garlick. Ian is the author of the book Video Testimonials That Land the Big Fish, which we'll be talking about a lot today, as well as the owner of Video Case Story, an agency that helps build brand authority and increases close rates by partnering with them on strategy behind video testimonials. Welcome, Ian. Pleasure to have you, man.
It is nice to be here. Thanks, guys. This is gonna be fun. I always like the two interviewee podcasts. I think it's fun. Someone gets to get gamed up on.
Oh yeah, it's usually Carl.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a feeling.
Yeah, that's where all my hair went. Everyone just stressed me out.
Yeah.
All right, Ian. So before we jump into today's topic, we want our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So tell us how long you've been in your industry and the project you're most proud of.
Wow, those are some big questions. I've been in the industry, I guess, marketing itself since 2006, so 17 years.
Nice.
I grew up in an entrepreneurial household, so marketing was kind of always around.
Yeah, it's kind of second nature.
Yeah, second nature. Internet-wise, I took my first programming class in 1981. I was 7 years old, and now I know how old I am. Mm-hmm. And I had CompuServe when I was 14 and build up a ton of long distance. Some of you don't know what that is, long distance bills, because you had to pay long distance plus the CompuServe. And to download a picture took like 3 hours on my 480, and I was so excited when I got my 960 kps. So that's how long I've been doing this. And oh man, I'm proud of the results for our clients. I love talking about, like some of the case stories we've got where someone cries and it transforms a business and helps other businesses. We did that with Build, Grow, Scale, where we got a few people just explain how they built their e-com business and like really a lot of emotion and help them to grow, build, grow, scale, and get more real people into it. I mean, we've helped law firms grow from 0 to $10 million law firms, which is fun.
Wow.
I love working with small business, but I've worked with, big names, Gina Wickman, Fran Tarkenton, Thomas DeLauer, just got an email from him. And, our buddy, who I won't name, who's very egotistical. I'm not going to name him. I don't think we should name him.
He may or may not have been on a previous podcast here.
He may have not been on previous podcasts, but I'm proud, it's just always, it's getting the results. It's getting the results for the clients where it's like, hey, you've helped grow my business, but also then like helping them help more people. That's the coolest part. It's like when you get, that's what I love about the customer stories. It's like, oh yeah, I found them because of these videos and then they transform my life. And I'm like, yeah, my job's done.
Yeah. Amazing, man. I love that.
And so, piggybacking right off of that, on this episode of Pixel Retentive, we are going to be discussing the value of customer or client testimonials, stories specifically, and how they can be used to share the story of a business's brand and kind of the the real value behind it rather than just kind of the pat on the back that testimonial, the word testimonial usually kind of garners, right?
Yep.
Why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of how you see testimonials, Ian, compared to, you know, the stigma, I think, at this point of like, oh, well, it's just a bunch of people talking in front of a camera about the fact they had a good customer experience.
Yeah, I mean, testimonials, right? It's if I ask, you ask someone for a testimony about Carl, they'll be like, Carl's great. You know, his head is shiny. No, but they'll be like, you know, he's this amazing artist. He's got a great attitude. I love working with him. Such a great guy. I mean, beautiful artwork. We had a really cool video when it was done, easy to work with. And I don't want to watch that. No one wants to watch that, right? If someone wants to watch that, like right before they're going to sign on the dotted line, that, okay, am I making a mistake? And like, oh yeah, Carl's great. Okay, yeah, I'll sign here. But there's so much about your story ahead of time. And this is what I say. No one wants a digital agency. No one wants an animator. People want their MTV, but okay, you were talking about MTV before.
Right.
But people want the results. They want the transformation. They want someone who understands what their problem is. You know, that they won't be judged. They want an experience, and they want in the end for their life to be changed somehow, some way. You know, you don't go to Starbucks just to get coffee, because if you were just getting coffee, and people say they're going there for just coffee, they're not. You know, people say wine. I was bartending for a long time. I worked in one of the top restaurants in New York City, and people buy $10,000 bottles of wine. I have extreme taste buds. I couldn't tell the difference between some of these, but it's an experience, right? It's the transformation. And that's great sommeliers tell a story of the wine, right? And that's what we buy. Paul Zach wrote some of the forward for our book. He's founder of neuroeconomics, and we talked a lot about the science recently of this. And there's a lot of science behind emotion and decision-making.
Oh yeah.
And it's actually, and we know that, but he's done the science, and it's this combination of oxytocin, cortisol, and it's actually through the story arc, you can identify the high point of a story arc, nail the emotion, and put a brand in front of there and actually connect the brand. And a story will do that. A testimonial is never a story.
Right.
And so I don't, and when you ask someone for testimonial, that's what you get. They don't want to do it. But if you ask someone to talk about their story, they're going to do it. Now, if you spend the time on it, you are going to win. And the best example is Walt Disney, right? Steve Jobs is another one of my favorites. You know, Ben Franklin, some of the best storytellers in the world. Best storyteller always wins. But Walt Disney was dying of cancer, right? Disneyland was made. He was ultra successful. I mean, we cannot comprehend the level of Walt Disney's fame, because he was in everyone's home twice a week. And that was literally everyone. That will never, ever happen again. And like, he was Uncle Walt. He couldn't go anywhere like without being found. But he would still, when he could barely walk and he was dying of cancer, he would go into Disneyland and listen to people's stories. And he would take note of them to improve Disneyland. Right? That's, I mean, he actually, they said this like it was a bad thing. He had people sit around and listen to his clients and the people at Disney World and eavesdrop about their stories and what they were saying. I have a story about him in the book. I won't ruin it because it's one of my favorite stories. But he transformed by the industry by listening to people. His biggest failure was Fantasia because he didn't listen to people. And it was amazing. It was this beautiful thing, but people didn't want it.
Right.
And so once he started listening to people, I think it might have been Pinocchio. It was one of those movies. It was like third or fourth movie that they got done with the movie. They had the audience screen it. And the audience was people that worked at Disney, and he interviewed them all. And most of them said what they liked and didn't like. And they pretty much started the movie over. Like, I mean, this is hand animating a movie.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And on cells as opposed to.
Yeah. And I mean, and he created he invented all of that stuff to tell better stories and to collect stories. And he still spent the time to go listen to someone's story. Now, if he did that, I mean, it's worth it to spend an hour or 2 hours a week listening to your customer stories. And that's where I want to get that mindset shift. Because when people collect testimonials, they check a box and they're like, oh, I've got a testimonial. And all right, let's slap that on there. Carl's great. He's awesome. It's on the website. No one watches it, but I've got social proof, right?
Yeah, because it's a glorified pat on the back,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, like I was saying before, it's just someone bragging about you. And not only that, but there's also this, like you were saying, there's also this I guess implication or stereotype that it's coerced as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, 100%.
Because they feel so fake. Because it's just like, yeah, he's cool.
It's deer in the headlights, right? I had a slide. I do a presentation on this. I'm like, and it's just like deer in the headlights, because they're like, I always think of is, you guys are probably too young for this, was the Saturday Night Live skit with the hypnotist. Did you guys ever see this?
No.
And I forget who it was. It's like, and everyone comes out of the show. This was back when they used to have Broadway advertisements, and like everyone come out of the show and like, it's great. It's better than Cats. But like literally every person came out of this hypnotist show goes, he was wonderful. It was the best show I've ever seen. Much better than Cats. I will see it again and again. And it was hilarious because it had like all the news people saying the same thing over and over again. But that's what testimonials feel like. Yeah. And we know that.
Brainwashing.
Yeah, we know that. And still we do it. And we're like, oh, yeah.
It's only further being proven, like this point of, people care about the story. Obviously, it was true back in Walt Disney's time as well as it is today, but we're seeing it even more and more with TikTok, right? Like the social proof element of social media is dying, if not already dead. And people are perfectly willing to sacrifice the quality of the content just to hear the emotional journey of somebody rambling on video. Yep. Right. Because the ones that get the most views are the ones that actually have, like you were saying, a proper story arc with a first act, second act, and third act, more or less. They're doing it subconsciously, but it's sort of baked into the way that we describe things, that there is a hero's journey associated with it. And the best storytellers are the most popular, even in modern day social media.
Yeah. 100%. And I want to put this one step further too, because we're thinking of it as marketing, right?
Sure.
We're thinking of it as a marketing tool. I started using it as a sales tool, and every salesperson needs to just be telling stories. The best salesperson I knew made millions and millions of dollars just telling stories. They weren't just his, but he had a collection of them, and he told the stories. Yep. On the flip side, operations. You want your team to do something great. We need to say, this is the end result we want. This is what we want for our clients. This is what we're doing for a person. This is the story of how we do it. Nordstrom's used to be famous for their customer service, and that's how they train people. It's like, here's the story of amazing customer service. It wasn't like open the door, make sure the bag is, make sure it smiles. Like, no, like go out of your way for a person. Here's what going out of your way looks like and feels like. And that's how you build an amazing business. I mean, that's what Apple was, right? 1,000 songs in your pocket. Boom. What an amazing story. Back then, that was everything. And Steve Jobs knew it.
Yeah, and they weren't even innovators of that. Like they actually, Steve Jobs hated on MP3s in that format for a long time. And there was dozens of other MP3 players that came out long before that. I had a whole bunch of them before the iPod ever came out. That's fascinating stuff.
None of this stuff ever costs as much as it's worth, right? Like you're paying for the experience. Like you said, Starbucks is 500%, 1,000% marked up. Same thing with Apple, right? Like you're not paying for what it's really worth. You're paying for what you feel out of it. You're paying for the emotion. You're paying for the experience.
You're paying for the story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
exactly. The story you tell yourself, right? So that then in the story for a lot of these brands, especially like Starbucks or Apple, and Apple in its totality for me, it's a story of people telling themselves that they can afford this nice thing and it's the nicest thing of this
Mhm.
version, right? It's a status symbol that makes them feel more I guess more not poor or not broke or whatever that looks
Well,
like for them.
There was one other story that Steve Jobs honed in on. They don't talk about a lot, but it makes people that are technologically incompetent feel
Yes.
like they're part of the future. And
Yes.
he was so good at that.
Oh wow, for sure. See, that's the thing. When I see someone really championing like any Apple products, like I just assume they don't really know how to use most technology. Like that's exactly where my brain goes. I don't know, and maybe I'm just a tech snob from back in the day when I used to
you're
build my own
you're,
PCs to play
you're definitely a
dial-up
tech snob. I
internet.
don't think those are
Tech snob.
mutually.
I
No,
used
for
to be
sure.
one. I used to be one until I realized that. And I'm like, oh, this just makes it easier for everyone else to feel cool.
Yep. So
Yep.
it's awesome. All right, so I had something that come to mind while you're talking. Like, so obviously, like these old idea of a case of a testimonial is very played out, and it feels inauthentic, right? Because it's very scripty and it's very like, oh well, these are the three questions or whatever that is. Like, what if you don't mind getting into this, because I know this is some of the secret sauce of your business,
Mhm.
and feel free to decline. But like, what are some of your favorite ways to stimulate these authentic stories from your clients or from people when you're trying to get them to talk about things in a way that really resonates?
So I'm gonna tell a story, right?
Okay.
I have a friend named Matt. He actually lives in New York. He might listen to this podcast. He'll know who I'm talking about. And one of my super smart guy, right? And you'll sit down and talk with him, and he'll start telling a story, and then that story will become another story, and then another story. You forget what you're talking about because he really didn't set in his mind of a goal, right?
Mm.
And
I do that.
yeah, which I mean, that's fine. That's fine. If especially you have a few drinks, it's like great. Someone's got to do the talking.
Right.
But if you were being sued, right, and your business is being sued, and you're sitting there, and you know that this lawsuit's happening, and it could either destroy your business. I actually had a client who was a sales company who another company in the middle of the night stole, and this wasn't my client. My client was the attorney who protected this client. Middle of the night, their client stole all their salespeople, like 12, 15 salespeople, literally 2:00 in the morning. Boom. This guy's entire sales force is gone. And it's this giant conglomerate that stole all of his business. And so he's David versus Goliath, classic thing. Now, imagine if you're that guy, your business is wiped out. You hire some attorneys and you're sitting there, and this is going somewhere, by the way. You're sitting there and you're sitting there at trial, and instead of the biggest witness comes up, 1-year-old salespeople, instead of your attorney coming up, a paralegal comes up, slaps a printed out ChatGPT list of questions in front of the witness and says, will you please answer these? How would you feel? You'd be pretty upset, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the end of my business. Well, your customer stories are that important, but you have to know what you want to get out of them. What position do you want? What angles? Is it important, this person's background? Is it important that they tried other people? Is it important how they felt right before hiring you? Was there something that didn't work that you need to put out there that, overcomes objections? You need to think about those things so you can you can develop those questions. Now, in general, you want to have 3 sets of questions. You want to have connection, conflict, conclusion, the story questions. Who they are, what the problems were, and, what were their conclusion being transformation. How did their life transform? Because it's not just how it ended, but you want to shape those questions based on where you want to go with this, right? Do you want more of this client? Do you want people that are willing to spend more? Do you want to overcome the objection of why you cost more than everyone else? Do you want people to understand why you take longer? Do you want people to understand what's different about your secret sauce?
Right.
You need to have those questions ready, and you need to have someone interviewing them. That's why I tell people, don't just send out questions, right? We're used to conversations. we can tell when someone's having a conversation. And you're going to get the story out. So generally, connection, conflict, conclusion questions, we have a list of about 30 or 40 of them. Get the book. There's a whole list of them. But I tell people in the book, don't do that. Don't just grab those questions, because you will miss out on all that gold. So know where you're going to go with it, and then ask those questions, and then dive deeper, right? When you find that emotion, dive deeper and find out those moments, and don't be afraid to ask more. It's like, this, you have to be able to have a conversation, because I've been on podcasts where people are like, here's my 10 questions. I'm like, that's the worst podcast ever.
Yeah.
Like, why am I even on here?
Yeah.
I could have AI Ian on here as a Viking Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And
Carl, I saw your head go like, I'm gonna draw that later.
Yeah, dude. You send me a pose. I'll work it out in Photoshop. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes, even if you have the best questions sent to someone, they're going to use the least possible effort to answer them if no one is facilitating, right? Because that's what it's a storytelling principle in general, where like your main character should always be doing the least amount of effort they can possibly get away with until the world kind of forces them to do better, and so on and so forth, right?
Yep. That's a good point. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, you go for it. Yeah, I mean, it's how the escalating conflict sort of chain happens in like entertainment stories. You never allow your character to go backwards, and it's because they're trying to. It always has to get harder and harder. It can't ever get easier, and it's based on this concept that human beings always, or nearly always, they always steer toward using as little effort as possible to accomplish a task. And so if you just send someone a bunch of questions, they're going to phone it in, even if they have a genuine connection with you. You have to tease it out of them. You have to actually have a conversation and dig deeper and get them excited about the task so that they're elevated further.
Yeah, we're human beings. We have conversations.
It also sounds like some of these things should be geared towards more emotional questions, right? Like, not like, hey, what did we do for you? Like, hey, what was the problem you were like, how did that make you feel? And then how did it make you feel once that problem was solved? And like those kind of things. I think I'm reading into that in the.
Oh yeah, that's always a great follow-up question. It's like, what happened? How did that make you feel? And you've got to ask that in the right way. You can't just be like, what happened? How did that make you feel? Right? It's like, what happened? And one of my favorites was always Charlie Rose, and I know he got in a lot of trouble, but if you watch him interview, his interviews are on a whole nother level. It's just a black table, black backdrop, but he just dives deep, and it's just like, wow, you really get to know the person on their side, and that's what I go for, and I think everyone should go for, because this is the reason you're doing what you're doing is for your customer, and if you do an amazing job for them, you are going to win. And you should take that story and tell everyone that story of doing the amazing job. And then next person you help, do it, learn from that and do a better job. Take that story and do a better job and charge more and get better. And it's going to get easier. That's why I call the case story flywheel. It's that simple. It's not the easiest thing in the world, because you got to stay focused, but you literally can do that and build a multi-billion-dollar business like Disney.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll keep you posted on our progress.
Nice, do it. Done.
And I jest, but like I've been following your content on TikTok. I know you just spun that up pretty recently, and I made a little comment like, "Yeah, I'm going to do this." And you followed up with me. I was like, "Man," I like grabbed that, I saved that link, put it in my to-do list. Like, I am actually going to start doing this, and like reaching out and doing some of these interviews with our clients, because it's unquestionably a super powerful thing to do. Like, there's nobody that just heard us talk about this and go, "Man, that sounds dumb." Like,
that was stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So, it's not sexy. It sounds sexy right now because I'm excited about it. But Facebook ads or building out this new thing or the super new technique to get number one on Google is sexy.
Right.
Customer stories, for some reason, aren't. I don't know why, but they win. You literally could only market with customer stories, and I guarantee you could grow a business. You wouldn't need anything else if you had real customer stories.
Yeah, you're right. That's going to save us a lot of money on animated in-house ads for ourselves.
Well, but you can tell, you can, here's the thing, you could get a really cool customer story and make it 1,000 times better with beautiful animation too.
Sure, yeah.
And tell an even better story that people remember. And then you spend the time making that customer story better and better and better and better and better till you are irresistible to the right people.
I mean, that's in general, that's kind of what Epic Made's, business plan mission statement is, right? Is it taking the right message and the right story and suiting it with amazing, epic, creative visuals that don't hide the story or muddy it at all, right? Like that we're specifically trying to enhance what the core message that we've been given is.
Yeah. But Ross, here's the problem with business is like you would have done better to tell a story about that, right? Yeah. And I get from so many corporates, like, we are experienced, we have integrity, we have customer service and cutting edge technology. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Right. It's like, but if you tell the story of that person that you helped. We have an agency that we did. This is one of my favorites. We did a customer story for them, and we did the interview, and they're like, well, and we knew we were going to go for customer service angle, and that's why we know ahead of time. We're like, well, tell us a little bit about, what stands out about their customer service. And the guy goes, watch this. Picks up the phone, dials, one ring. The owner calls up. And he's like, hey, hey, Bill, how can I help you? I'm like, that no one will ever forget, right? That's a 2-second clip. So that's where you got to find those. And, and I challenge you guys to go find that story. And like, when you do that, and I need to get better at this too, when you do your podcast intro, listen to the story of how we helped so-and-so transform their business with, this amazing animation. Watch the entire case story here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah. It's funny. It's one of those things that like you said, it's very simple in concept, but it's one of those things that like you would never think of it outright if someone wasn't like explaining the value of it, because it feels so unsexy.
Yeah.
And just the idea of it, I came from a sales background before I went into I've always drawn my whole life, illustrated my whole life, and I've always wanted to be an animator, an illustrator, make video games and whatnot. But to pay the bills and go through college and whatnot, I ran a Sprint store, like a Sprint mobile.
Wow.
Right.
Jeez,
I was making.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. No, I appreciate the condolence.
Because people are weird about their phones, and most of them don't know how they work, and they're like, I'm like, I can only imagine the things that happen to you. So
and I worked for Sprint. I wasn't working for Verizon. I was like or AT&T. I had an AT&T phone working for Sprint. But I was making really good money. I was making like 60 grand at like 22. So I felt like getting good at it was worthwhile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the more sales I made, I was incentivized, right?
Yep.
And so I did this sort of stuff when I was selling phones, right? Like I would talk about previous customers who walked 10 feet from the store and dropped their phone. Right?
Yeah.
Like
that's
real
scary,
stories, right? Or I would also do this thing where OtterBox was like a really, really, really big thing back then. They have more competition now, but their cases were basically advertised as indestructible. And so I would literally put one of our demo phones in an OtterBox case and slam it onto the desk as hard as I possibly could and turn the phone on and start using it. Just like as that like shock and awe sort of case study. And it worked great. Like all of the stuff that you're saying for business was so second nature, selling just an individual product.
Yeah.
That I think I don't know that I ever considered doing it for something as complex as what we do.
And that's the most important thing to do it for. I love complex things, because when you can find the story at the heart of something complex, people are like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, this is so much better than going, well, we take, there's that one meme where the guy's explaining like the aircraft thing. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
He's like,
He's like, the whistle turns into the thing, it does a centrifugal. Yeah, I think I know. Yeah. I don't even know the way, but it was insane. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I've seen so many like marketers talk like that, and I'm like, dude, you've lost them. But it's like, hey, you're gonna come in here, and I know it sounds like this is complex, but we're gonna take this ultra complex thing you're doing, develop this beautiful story like we did for so and so, and people are gonna watch it, and then they're gonna understand what you do, and they're gonna want to throw money at you. And they're like, okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's
That's
funny.
He just wrote the script for our new ad.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
We were just talking about this morning, so
yeah, it's funny. You always hear people saying like, oh, you have to, sort of dumb it down to a 6th grade level, or like, if be able to explain what you do in like a sentence or two in a way that doesn't have any convoluted language or anything like that. But I think the heart of it is you need to get people emotionally excited about it. Right? Like the heart of it is simplicity is the best way to tell a story. And you have to tell a story to get people emotionally invested. And so simplifying the explanation is only half of the battle.
Yep.
And I don't know that that's something that I ever really considered until this podcast.
No, you definitely have to tell a story. Yeah, and we are somewhat natural storytellers when someone's in front of us. There's people that, aren't good storytellers, but most of us are. But then we take it to marketing and we watch too many advertisements and we think that's how you tell a story. It's like, no, you've got to use curiosity and conflict and grab someone's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's funny, my favorite quote in the world that's been like a part of like my wife and I's stuff for a long time, and she works in environmental justice and sustainability, and it's the same there. It's those who tell the stories rule the world, right? And the biggest corporations know this because they own all the media outlets, right? Like they're telling the stories, they control the narrative, right? They rule the world. It's the same thing all the way down to this. It's it's well
the best
known.
Storyteller wins. Best storyteller always wins.
Yep.
There was what's his name? Paul Revere, and the other guy was actually more important than that. I can't remember his name.
Exactly.
Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla.
Yep.
People start telling a story, but Thomas Edison was the best storyteller.
Yep.
And he destroyed Tesla because of it.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a great comparison because Tesla had the better. So like Tesla had the better products. He had the better solution. He had
he was way smarter. Yeah.
He was way smarter. Like arguably should have been on top easily.
Yeah.
And
Edison was a better storyteller.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he died poor.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Tesla, yeah.
Yeah, very poor. So. I mean, Edison kind of did too. That's a whole nother story.
Edison pillaged Tesla though, and
he
had very shit ethics. Like, if we're being honest. So
I mean, you know about him, like taking DC and shocking people with it, or shocking animals and killing them, and saying this is what electricity will do to you.
Right.
To show how bad Tesla was, even though we know it happened both ways.
Right.
And it's storytelling. Best storyteller always wins. There were other I don't want to get religious. There were other prophets besides Jesus. Jesus was the best storyteller. Muhammad, best storyteller.
Yeah.
When we get into religion, we get into politics, and the best storyteller always wins.
Yep.
For sure, especially in politics. Yeah, without a doubt. You don't always have to murder animals for it, but it's still
it grabs attention.
Attention grabbing is a big part of storytelling, right? Especially in this bite-sized, quick swipe. Like, you watch anybody on their phone. I was on the airplane yesterday flying back from Gen Con, and people are just doing this. whenever
Yep.
they're on their phone. Like it's
Yep.
they'll stop for a second. You get 3 seconds, then they just keep it's spastic, right? Like it's
It is.
wild. So,
It is.
anyways.
It's getting scary.
Yeah.
How actually getting into that, how my mental sort of vision for the ideal end product, the ideal like video story testimonial,
Video case stories.
video case story, yep, is slower in cadence than I think social media allows for. It's more vulnerable than I think social media typically allows for. Do you have, is that something that you're combating in any way, or?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is where you have to, the best storyteller, right? They A, have a lot of stories, B, tell them in different ways, and understanding not only the place, but the time. Yeah. So if someone's early on in the stage, you need fast, like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened to me. Right. If they're near the end of their consideration, they will watch 5, 10, 20 minutes, right? Because they're invested. So you have to think about that for sure. Yeah. For sure. But that's what's awesome. Like you know, the platforms like right now, like as we talk about this, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, great place for short-term form, high energy storytelling, and for an open loop. Be like, if you want to watch this whole story, go over to YouTube.
Yep.
All right. And then you draw the right audience, and you have to, and it's something I call the Motown philosophy. The hook is the number one thing. And the reason I call them Motown is because they were the masters of the hook. So, they had a room that they would sit on with every song for like multiple days working on the hook of every song. And it's no coincidence that they're the most hits out of any recording studio. Not a, it's like you can go boom, 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 right? You know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long, that wasn't just like, oh, we just found that. It was like days and days of work. So you have to know the hooks. You have to know how to keep people's attention. You have to know things like you get better at pattern interrupts. And that's where, coming back to like stand-up comics, right? That's why they have to have a live audience, because they're testing it, but you have to be testing it and have to be putting it out. And that's a great part about social media, is you can just be constantly testing pieces of it and see what hooks people. So
I love this. You've inspired me a lot in this conversation. I know you Ross too. We've had a lot of guests on the podcast so far, but I think this is my favorite. I'm going to go back and rewatch this like several times. So this is
awesome.
Fun.
Yeah, I mean, read the book too. I mean, the book is not a sales letter. Yeah, the book's not a sales letter. I didn't even include a lot of stories in it because I'm like, here's exactly what you got to do, and here this is what you got to do. Don't skip any of the steps, because if you skip the step, I've skipped the step, it's going to screw up. But if you do this, and you do it over and over again, you will win.
I love it.
Hell yeah. We are unfortunately coming up on time, so you're gonna have to settle for rewatching this one, Carl.
You can come on down to Florida. We can go walk around Disney World in the heat, sweat together.
That sounds beautiful.
The moist heat.
Oh my God.
Before we wrap up, we do have one last question for you, Ian. Is there anyone or anything in your career that you'd like to shout out to the audience that might be a mentor, a valuable resource, a favorite client? I know you let us know favorite parts about projects.
I know, and it's hard because it's like so many people have given me so much. You don't do this in a vacuum. You don't. And, there's so many great authors that I've listened to. I've been lucky enough to be friends with, like Paul Zak. Lots of amazing marketers. Like I think you guys work with Jeremy Weiss, is a great marketer. Not the best storyteller, but he's a great marketer. I think all those people build up. And I'm lucky. I grew up in a family that told stories, so I have an amazing family, and it was just always about storytelling. So we got used to it. And I don't know. I don't think there's any. And someone's gonna be mad at me because I didn't shout out to them. But I really appreciate, like right now with the book launch, everyone that's helping, like Lisa, Lisa Tenner, I'll give a shout out to her. She wrote a writing journal. She's an amazing book coach. Really helps spark ideas. Michelle Princess, who's helping me with publishing the book. April Iazone just had me on her podcast. She does med spa marketing. Everyone that's sharing the book right now, folks, the stories are there, but also the people around you.
Yeah.
You've got to accept the help and appreciate them.
Look at you. You're like, I have no idea who to talk about. And then you went ahead. You went rattled
I
off
didn't want
names.
I didn't want it to be one of those Academy Award speeches. Like, I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, my hamster, Billy.
And then inevitably you forgot like 2 or 3 really important people. Like,
that's how it works. Yeah.
I mean, we really appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there is an entire village, just like there is for us, of people who deserve love. We're only looking for one or two names for the end of the podcast, just to end on a positive note. And I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, and you did do that. And I want to go ahead and give a big thank you to Stacy Green from the Agency Mastery, who connected us initially the first time. So that was super cool. And of he who we will not mention this
we're
episode.
Skirting Goldenwood's name. Yeah.
I can't wait to just email and be like, we didn't mention you on this episode. Awesome.
Well,
I'll leave it at this. That person sent me his landing page, and it's like this giant picture of him. I'm like, I think you should make the picture of you bigger.
Definitely bigger. He needs some more highlights, and a little.
Oh yeah. I did notice that as well.
We love him. He's a great human being.
We've been talking to Ian Garlic. He's the owner of Video Case Story and the author of Video Testimonials That Land the Big Fish. You can check out their website at videocasestory.com. But Ian, if listeners want to follow up about the book or with you directly, where should they go?
You can get the book at testimonialbook.com. That's easy to remember. Even though I hate testimonials, people look for that. Yeah, and connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube. I'm on both of them. You can Video Case Story and, connect with me there and, comment or message me, and I'll be there. And TikTok too. I'm back on it. I was back. Jason and I actually, he was the first person I made a TikTok video with back when it was, what was it called? Musically. We made a music video together like 7 years ago. I used his name.
I love it.
We mentioned him, damn it.
I know.
But yeah,
ridiculous. All right,
Awesome.
Cool. All right, Ian. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, man. We really appreciate you. And till next time, everyone, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Peace. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.